If a larger country oppresses a smaller country, I stand with the smaller country. If in that smaller country there is a majority religion which oppresses the minority religion, I stand with the minority religion. If in that minority religion there is one caste which oppresses the other caste, I stand with the oppressed caste. If in that oppressed caste there is a boss which oppresses his employee, I stand with the employee. If that employee goes home and oppresses his wife, I stand with that woman. Mottatil adukumurai anethri. Overall, oppression is my enemy. These were the words of Periyar E. Ramasamy. And not just words, mind you, a framework for an entire ideology. Welcome to the Lakshya Speaks YouTube channel, and today's episode we will be discussing about Periyar E. Ramasamy, the father of the Dravidian movement and one of the foremost political intellectuals in Indian history. When we talk of Indian history, we often talk of empires. The Mauryas, the Guptas, the Delhi Sultanate, the Mughals. But have you ever noticed something? Most of mainstream Indian history comes from one region, the Indo-Gangetic Plain, the North, or some would call it the Hindi heartland. So, what happens to the rest of India? What happens to the South? Its languages, its culture, its history. Why is it often treated as regional? That's where Periyar enters the story. In this video, we will be understanding who exactly was Periyar E. Ramasamy, what is the ideology called Dravidianism, what is its social, political, and cultural impact, and why is Periyar still relevant to this day. When we imagine India, what comes to mind? Hindi, Delhi and Mumbai, Bollywood, the Rajput kings, Punjabi culture, Delhi as the center of power. Now, this idea didn't come out of nowhere. For centuries, dominant empires like the Mughal Empire and the earlier northern powers shaped how India was imagined. But now compare that with the Chola Empire, a South Indian empire that expanded beyond India into Southeast Asia, into Sri Lanka. A naval power so dominant that the Bay of Bengal was once called a Chola lake. And yet, one is called mainstream history and the other is relegated to regional history. Why exactly? Will the story of India be only told from Delhi and Mumbai and not Madurai? Periyar asked this question long before most people did. Periyar E. Ramasamy, born Erode Venkata Ramaswamy Naikar, was not born oppressed exactly. He was born into a Balija Naidu family. He came from a relatively wealthy merchant family. He was educated, confident, socially respected. He believed he had status until one incident changed everything. As per widely narrated accounts, during a visit to Varanasi, Kashi, Periyar lost his purse, his wallet, and was left hungry. He came across a place where food was being served to the community, a bandhara, if you will, a community feeding space. He sat down to eat, but then he was stopped. Not because he was poor, not because he was uneducated, but because he was not a Brahmin. You see, the bandara in which Periyar sat to have food was a Brahmin only bandara. And anyone who wasn't a Brahmin was not allowed. Due to this, Periyar was beaten, humiliated, and thrown out. The movement changed everything. What Periyar believed that he's accomplished in life and he will be respected was all a farce. It is caste which dictates things in India, and caste is decided by where you are born. And in India, your birth could matter more than your worth. And from that movement emerged the ideology Dravidianism. Pre-independent India, There was British rule, but then revolutionaries, social activists, and politicians across the country were imagining what an independent India would be. When India was being imagined, India as an independent nation state, what would its identity be? What would its history be framed like? And here, Periyar believed that the nation state of India, the way it was imagined by those in the north, it came from a narrow lens. The people doing these debates in the Constituent Assembly, being parts of the Congress party for the most part, they were largely a North Indian dominated crowd, a Hindi speaking crowd, where Hindi de facto became the default language, where North Indian culture was seen as mainstream, and everybody else, well, relegated to being secondary. And here Periyar argued that Tamil is not just a language. Being a Dravidian, it's not just a culture or a regional identity, it is in fact a civilizational identity. That the cultures of the South are not side notes in history, they are central to India itself. Tamil is as old as Sanskrit itself and equally rich in terms of literature and classical linguistics. If this culture, this identity, this civilizational ethos of the South, if that is not protected, it will be relegated to the footnotes, to the sidelines. And that is what Periyar noted. And there comes the ethos of the Dravidian cultural identity. But you see, even in the South, things were not perfect. The society had its problems, had its regressiveness, had its orthodoxy, and that had to be challenged. For Periyar, the deeper problem in Indian society was caste. You see, it's a system where your birth decides your place. You're a Brahmin, your son will be a Brahmin, and so will be his son. If you are from a certain Kshatriya family, so will be your son be a Kshatriya, and his son will also be a Kshatriya. Caste is almost ordained by birth, and so are your rights, and so is your dignity. And Periyar argued that this so-called Brahmanical dominance was not just a social thing, it was a deeply ideological thing. A system where knowledge, religion, and power were controlled by a few, and where the same system justified itself. You see, the Brahmin caste, they had a monopoly over the Vedas and the Shastras. They were the ones who interpreted it and gave the knowledge to the public. And in their interpretation, they declared themselves as superior, using the same scripture which they used to interpret. Where Periyar entered and said, this is a whole lot of rubbish. For Periyar, the notion of caste-based superiority, and Brahmanical superiority, that too, was ludicrous. It had to be worn out. It had to be removed. And Periyar started what he called the self-respect movement. And it achieved something radical and revolutionary in entire Indian history. The goal was simple: dignity for everyone, regardless of your caste. And what they did still stands to this day. Periyar encouraged people to drop caste-based surnames. You see, under the caste system, the biggest indicator of one's caste was their name itself, their surname. And Periyar said, let us reject the surnames, let us drop the surnames. A large chunk, even to this day, people in Tamil Nadu do not have caste-based surnames. They just use the name of their father, the first name of their father, as their surname. And it is not just limited to Tamil Nadu. Even in Kerala, you see a lot of people doing it. Even in the larger Tamil community, the Dravidian community across the globe, you have Tamils in faraway Malaysia practicing the same. This wasn't just a reform, it was a cultural rebellion within the Tamil ethos, redefining what Dravidian is. You see, as much as culture is to be understood and respected, it also needs to be reformed. And it's a balance which Periyar understood perfectly. And Periyar's fight was not just against caste oppression, it was against all forms of oppression. And the biggest problem he also saw was that of patriarchy. Women back in the day, they were expected to be at home, get married, have kids, and take care of the family. a very limited patriarchal role. Periyar questioned, why should women only be homemakers? Why should their lives revolve around marriage and motherhood only? He argued that women should have equal access to education, work, and independence. Decades before these ideas became mainstream, Periyar was asking a radical questions. Why do we expect women to do this service to society and family and have children? Why can't they just be themselves? If a woman wants to have kids, fair, that's a choice. But she should also have the choice to not have kids, not be part of a family, and to work on her own career and choose her own path. Mind you, these ideas in India were echoing someone else who was speaking the same idea in a different language. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. In many ways, Periyar's closest ideological parallel was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Both fought caste, both challenged tradition, and both demanded dignity. But the methods were quite different. While Dr. Ambedkar worked through the constitutional method, Periyar worked through a social revolution and a resulting political movement. They both spoke different languages, but they were fighting more or less the same system. So what, Lakshya? That was all 70 years ago. What about today? Well, the ripple effects are still to this day. The movement Periyar started, the Dravida Khazagam. Tamil Nadu politics is defined by just two parties, the DMK and the AIDMK. The DMK is the Dravida Munnetra Khazagam and the AIDMK is All India Anna Dravida Munnetra Khazagam. Both of them are coming from the same branch, which is the Munnetra Khazagam, which is based on Periyar's ideology. Tamil politics still to this day is rooted in Periyarite ideology. There is no Tamil politics without Periyar, that much is for certain. Let's talk about art, culture, cinema, the social justice themes in movies stretching all the way from Rajnikant to Parajit to even Vijay Sethupathi. Themes of social justice, the themes of anti-caste narratives in movies, the atmosphere which allows for movies to be centered on these themes, well, that comes from the Periyarite ethos. Still to this day, under the three-language policy, where most of the states in the south and also in the northeast, people are learning three languages, English, Hindi, and the regional tongue. The only state in the entirety of India which rejects Hindi and says we'll only learn English and our own mother tongue is Tamil Nadu. In terms of policy, everywhere in the Hindi heartland, children learn two languages, English and Hindi, the mother tongue. And all the other states, they learn three languages, English, Hindi, and their own regional language. Except, of course, Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu, back in the day, to this day, is the only state which successfully and staunchly fought against Hindi imposition and continues to fight against Hindi imposition. And mind you, this prioritization of one's own language is not just politics. It is an assertion of one's identity. And all this was written by Periyar all over. If you look to the Periyarite ethos, the first movement in India against Hindi imposition was started by Periyar himself. You cannot understand Tamil Nadu socially, culturally, or politically without understanding the mind of this man, Periyar. He is the one who defined the state in many ways. Still to this day, we have all heard Periyar's name somewhere, but he is still seen controversial. But the real question is, who exactly is not comfortable with him? Well, the ones in the dominant establishment. Because Periyar did the thing of questioning those who wanted to dominate a certain worldview, a certain framework, a certain ideology, or a certain language over an entire group of people. Every oppressive structure, Periyar attacked it head on. While being a social revolutionary, while questioning social structures, the interesting thing about Periyar is that he also understood that his own people, the people of Tamil Nadu and the larger Dravidian cultures and the larger Dravidian group of people have their own cultural identity. Looking down on someone, be it the North looking down on the South, be it the Brahmins looking down on the non-Brahmins, or be it the men looking down on women. Periyar challenged them all. You cannot understand Tamil Nadu without understanding Periyar. He is foundational in that regard. And you cannot make sense of India without understanding the contribution of Periyar in understanding the larger Indian ethos. So when we think of the idea of India, the politics of India, of course we should think about people like Jawaharlal Nehru or Sardar Patel, but we cannot ignore people like Periyar. The story of India was not just written from Delhi or Mumbai, it was also written from Madurai. And that should not be forgotten.